Okay, this video looks interesting. It was sent to me by someone on Twitter who says that I have to take a look at this because it's so full of crazy. It's called Human 2.0, a wake-up call to the world, and it's by a doctor, Dr. Carrie Madej. And this video has got about a third of a million hits, 370,000 hits, and a 95% approval rating. So let's take a look at it.
So what do you think about going from human 1.0 to human 2.0? And what does that mean? Well, going from humans as we now know ourselves to human 2.0 has something to do with transhumanism.
Yeah, and it's a fairly fuzzy line. I mean, if you want to include things like the internet, which honestly almost kind of give us transhuman abilities in that, you just compare your average guy 100 years ago as to what his access to knowledge was like. If I asked him what's the mass of the Earth, the distance to Venus, all that sort of thing, these would be the subject of hours of work for him. And yet, we can just type it into Google and boom, the information is there. So our access to knowledge has gone up orders of magnitude over the last 100 years or so.
If you're not familiar with that term, it's about taking humans as we know ourselves and melding with artificial intelligence. Kind of like being in the Matrix, if you've ever seen that movie.
Okay, but at that point, all you're really talking about is improving the interface between humans and the knowledge base. Yeah, that's all you're talking about here. I mean, don't get me wrong, it would be awesome that if rather than having your kids have to spend 10 years in school, they can learn it all in 30 seconds. You can't do it, by the way. It'd melt your brain. There has to be neurons formed. That would generate heat. Anyway, so that's essentially what we were talking about, is access to knowledge.
And that may seem kind of cool to you. We might have some superhuman abilities, maybe be able to think of something and it happens. Maybe have some physical abilities that would be almost superhuman-like.
Again, you could argue that our tools already put us in that category. You only have to scroll the clock back 100 or so years, and the idea of flying across the Atlantic or the Pacific in a single go at nearly the speed of sound would have sounded pretty much superhuman.
That's the idea. That's what you see in sci-fi movies. And for myself, thinking about this topic, I'm like, well, I have some time. I think that's many years in the future. However, this question, this idea is now right in this moment.
Oh, phew. She's only going to be pontificating about the moral ambiguities of transhumanism. For a second there, I thought she was going to meld this into some massive conspiracy about the coronavirus somehow.
We need to make a decision. And I found out that we need to make a decision about this because I investigated the proposed COVID-19 vaccine. And this is my alarm call to the world. I looked at the pros and cons and it frightens me.
Yeah, and I'm sure these won't turn out to be based on the fact that you just don't understand biochemistry.
And I want you to know about this. You need to be very well informed because this new vaccine is not like your normal flu vaccine.
Well, she's kind of right there, and the coronavirus vaccine doesn't actually exist yet. But let's hear about all the things that are terrifying about this vaccine that doesn't exist.
This is something very different. This is something brand new. This is something completely experimental on the human race.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain she has no idea how medical research like this is actually done. You don't just sort of turn up and say, yeah, let's try something new in medicine and just try it on all of mankind. That's not how people do research. There's a reason why it takes almost $1 billion to get a drug to market.
And it's not just about being a different vaccine. There are technologies that are being introduced with this vaccine that can change the way we live, who we are and what we are, and very quickly.
Yeah, and this is where she just shoots straight off into crazy land. Look, viruses, on the grand scheme of things, are relatively simple biological systems. They inject some RNA into your cells, which sort of hijacks part of your cells and creates more copies of the virus. Relatively simple. Organisms are mind-blowingly complicated biological systems. There is no way that you could tinker with a system like that and successfully predict what the outcome would be. Because if you could do that, then it would be an absolute snap to wipe out any virus that you wanted, because it would be relatively simple just to stop up that little bit of biochemistry. Do you know how many viruses have been wiped out by mankind ever? Well, of the viruses that infect people, it's one, the smallpox virus. And that took, decades and a worldwide effort. If you had the level of biological knowledge that she thinks is going into this coronavirus vaccine, you could have cured all viruses on Earth in a Thanos snap.
I think that, some people that you might know these names, Elon Musk, who is the founder of SpaceX and Tesla Automotive, as well as Ray Kurzweil, who is one of the bigwigs of Google. These are self-proclaimed transhumanists. They believe that we should go to human 2.0, and they are very big proponents of this.
Good God, it's so hard to keep track with these conspiracy nutters. Right, so now she's about to rope Musk in with the transhumanists who are all out to try and get you somehow using coronavirus vaccine. Let's remind ourselves what Elon Musk was saying at the beginning of the coronavirus outbreak, shall we? He said, the coronavirus panic is dumb. So how does this fit into a conspiracy again?
There's a lot of other people that you might know their names. They're also involved with this, so you should look that up.
Actually, I think it might be you who needs to look up something about basic biochemistry.
I think the easiest way to explain this to you is to go with one of the front runners for the vaccine and go into a little bit of the history and tell you how they want to make the vaccine.
We're already into how they want to make the vaccine. This great cabal of conspiracy nuts who want to make you transhumans by a coronavirus vaccine, even though the guy who you think is leading it describes the coronavirus panic as dumb. You didn't think this through very well, did you?
And I think that will speak volumes. So for instance, Moderna is one of the front runners for the COVID-19 vaccine. You should know that Moderna was founded by a person from Harvard.
Oh yeah, well, that's so devastatingly suspicious that someone with a Harvard background should start a medical company. Why is this suspicious again?
Eric Rossi, and this researcher actually was successful in taking some modified RNA and being able to reprogram a stem cell in the body and change the function of the stem cell. He actually made it genetically modified, okay?
Okay, so someone with a medical background did some gene transfection. Something that's been around for 30 to 40 years, that sort of thing. Again, why is this suspicious? I mean, this is the sort of thing that goes on in, most of the biochemical departments in any country.
So he proved that you can genetically modify something by using modified RNA. So they founded the company Moderna on this concept. It's kind of a new kid on the block, okay? It's not been around that long.
Well, according to Wiki, the first artificial genetic modification was done in 1973. Yeah, not been around that long.
In fact, it hasn't even made any vaccine for a human before. It's made no medicine for a human before. This will be their first run. You must know that Moderna was in the news recently because it really fast-tracked. It's like the other companies, it's fast-tracking the vaccine.
Oh, wow, she's really blowing this conspiracy wide open. that a company is fast-tracking a vaccine during a pandemic. That's so suspicious. I would expect most companies, especially the ones that want to make a profit at some point, to deliberately slow-track a vaccine during a pandemic, because everyone knows it makes the most business sense to actually have your vaccine second or third to market, or even better, to have it to market after there's no more demand for it.
It's going from phase 1 to phase 2 very, very quickly.
Oh no, they're going from phase 1 to phase 2 quickly. Quick, save us, Doctor, whatever she was called.
In fact, it's gone from phase 1 to phase 3 in its experiments from March of this year until currently. I mean, that is unbelievable. It usually takes 5 or 6 years. How are they able to do this with the safety and efficacy data that we need?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like there's any urgency or anything. It's not like there have been almost 200,000 dead Americans already. I mean, there's no urgency. I mean, why are we fast-tracking this at all? I mean, if we had it in 5 or 6 years' time, that would be fine, right? I mean, why are we rushing with this vaccine?
And I want you to know that in phase 2, they're only using between 30 and 45 humans. In Moderna's test study, they only used 45 humans. And with the...
Yes, that's kind of normal for vaccine tests, is you don't want to test them on everyone at the same time because that can go badly wrong for a lot of people. You usually try these tests on small groups of people to begin with.
The high-dose vaccine group, they got 100% of those people got systemic side effects. 100.
Okay, so I'm just going to take her at complete face value at the moment. Quite why I should, I'm not entirely certain. You know, this is a woman who is sitting there in all genuine honesty and saying, why are we fast-tracking a vaccine during a pandemic? But anyway, let's just take what she said there as correct, that with the high-dose vaccine, everyone got side effects. Well, wouldn't that kind of be what you would expect with the high dose?
That's only in the short side effect profile. In the low dose vaccine, 80% got systemic side effects.
So what? Most drugs that you give people have side effects. The question is the benefit that you get from taking the drug more than offset by the side effects? So if the side effects are, someone they didn't feel quite as well for a day or two, but at the end of it, they become immune to the coronavirus, then that's fine. No one cares. If the side effects are that you suffer brain damage and die, or your lungs collapse or something like that, then this is kind of serious. But she doesn't even list any of the side effects. She just says 80% of the people had some side effects. You can't draw any informed opinions from that. You need more information, which, curiously enough, she doesn't give us any of.
Now, we don't even know the long-term side effects from that. We would need a lot longer time, right? Maybe years.
Oh my God. She is genuinely arguing that we need to wait years before we use this vaccine. Does she actually understand that about 200,000 people have died from this already in America? Does she understand that time is a factor here?
But we do know, based on previous animal studies of using this technology, that you can expect possibly increased cancer rates, increased mutant genes, mutagenesis.
Yeah, at this point, I think we're into the category of, did you know that your average cup of coffee contains over 1,000 chemicals, only about 50 of which have ever been tested in the lab, and half of those caused cancer in rats?
Also, increased autoimmune reactions. For instance, in some of the ferret studies, they saw that when the ferret was introduced to the virus that they were trying to protect the ferret from after the ferret got the vaccine, they actually had an exaggerated immune response. It actually hurt.
Cool. It sounds like she's finally starting to understand that merely creating a vaccine is difficult. This is right on the limit of what mankind can do. But that's not going to stop her from going off on some crazy tangent that this is going to make us human 2.0 somehow.
Okay, so those are longer term reactions, and that could be seen with this vaccine, but we don't know the data yet. So it's not without risk.
Well, yes, vaccines are not without risk. It's entirely true. But the number of people who have been killed in America so far on coronavirus vaccine research is 0. The number of people who have been killed by the coronavirus is getting up for 200,000. Doing nothing is not without risk either.
And how are they doing this? Well, they're actually suggesting to use a platform. Let me just explain
Honestly, I think you can give the explanations a rest. Just try taking a deep breath and try to understand why people would want to fast track a vaccine during a pandemic.
So the vaccine, there's an idea called Microneedle platform, okay? This was developed by MIT. And they said it could be very easily produced, okay, and mass produced. This is why they're proposing this technology, and many millions of vaccines could be made quickly.
She's not going to go all Theranos on us, is she?
They could also be administered by yourself. So the idea is to get a Band-Aid. It looks like a Band-Aid you buy in the drugstore. No. It's shipped to you through Amazon or UPS or some other shipping service. You take it out of the package, you put it on your hand like this, and then you take the sticker off, and voila, you've been vaccinated.
Oh my word. So let me see if I can get this straight. Elon Musk is going to make you a transhuman by giving you a vaccine delivered by the Theranos patch?
So how is that possible? Well, in this Band-Aid, it has little tiny spicules, little tiny needles, and this was designed after a snake viper fang bite, okay, or snake viper fangs. So little snake bites.
Well, I'm not so sure it was designed after snake viper fangs. Might have been designed after snake oil.
Anyway, in these tiny little spicules, they claim you won't really feel it that much. There's their little hydrogel. It's a material called hydrogel inside.
Okay, do we really need the description of Theranos 2.0 here?
Inside the hydrogel would be a Luciferase enzyme as well as the vaccine itself.
And at this point, I'm just going to call bullshit on this. Look, a lot of what you do with vaccines is about keeping them sterile. Vaccines often contain a lot of proteins and the such like. It's basically broth, right? It's a very specific kind of broth that provokes your immune system into making things that will kill a virus if your body encounters it. However, if you don't keep that stuff sterile, if bacteria get into that broth, then they reproduce, and if you inject bacteria into people, they get sepsis and they die. So a lot of work with vaccines goes into keeping this stuff sterile. The luciferase that she's talking about is just an enzyme. You just leave that around in a beaker on the bench, the bacteria will have a field day, and there is no way that you can use it as a vaccine. You're certainly not going to be shipping these things around by Amazon.
So in that modified RNA, the idea is that the microneedles would puncture into your cell membrane, okay? And this synthetic piece of an RNA, it's a code for the part of the virus, or they could use a synthetic DNA to code for the part of the virus, would go into your nucleus, your body would start transcribing it, would start reading it, and making more of that part of the virus. Well, why would we want to make more of the virus or part of the virus?
Okay, that's actually a fairly clever way of doing things. Really, really impractical, but quite a clever way of doing things. So rather than just injecting people with the proteins that would usually coat the virus, and then your body works out that those proteins are alien and creates an immune response to them, you inject someone's cells with a fragment of RNA that creates those proteins, and again, your body just creates the immune response to it. That doesn't actually sound a bad way of doing things. It's phenomenally difficult to do in that it's It's really, really hard to introduce a piece of RNA into a cell without killing it. Right? These are difficult. Viruses do it, but they've had 4.5 billion years of practice.
The idea is your body would get used to seeing it, would know how to make antibodies, and would have an improved T-cell response. And the idea is then when you saw it in the future, your body would already know how to fight it, and it would be a better response. That's the idea.
Cool, so she seems to be happily agreeing that this is a sensible way of getting people immune to a virus.
The problem with that is they're using a process called transfection. And transfection is a way that we make genetically modified organisms. Okay, I think you know about those fruits and vegetables. They're not as healthy as the normal wild type fruit and vegetables.
No. Looks like I'm going to have to explain to the good doctor how the human digestive system works. You see, the human digestive system is remarkable in that its goal is to end up with amino acids, base pairs, and lipids that it can use to maintain your body. And it does this through the digestive system. So I can take in one meal, pig DNA, potato DNA, carrot DNA, avocado DNA, and orange DNA. And I put these all into one pot in my stomach. Yet that DNA doesn't just miraculously go all over my body and give me properties of all the DNA that I've eaten. You dissolve it down to base pairs, and then your body uses that as raw materials, which is why there is no evidence at all that it is less healthy to eat these genetically modified organisms, because your body just breaks it down and uses the raw materials.
Possibly you could extrapolate that to a human. If we become genetically modified, we would not be as healthy, okay? We don't have long-term studies on this anyway. This is unbelievable.
Look, there are all sorts of problems with genetic modification and getting genes out into the environment. But one of the things that you don't have to be concerned about is eating them, because your digestive system just dissolves everything.
And you know, the vaccine manufacturers have made the statement, this will not alter our DNA, our genome. I say that is not true.
And you're wrong when you say that.
Because if we use this process to make a genetically modified organism, why would it not do the same thing to a human?
You know, it would actually help if she understood what she was talking about. It really would. So help things along a little here. Look. When people talk about genetic modification of organisms, what you're talking about is you do the engineering when they're only a single cell. This is the single cell that's going to grow up to become the corn plant or the turkey or whatever, right? So as that single cell divides, every time it does that, the modified DNA is copied. So every single cell in that organism has the modified DNA. That's what we mean when we say the genome has been modified. What they're talking about with these sort of gene therapies is that you get some DNA into some of the cells, which then produce things like, I don't know, antibodies or antigens or something like that, that gives you an immunity to the virus. But that's not really modifying the genome of the organism. I mean, if you'd modified the genome of the entire organism, then all of its children would contain that genetic modification as well. And that's just not true here.
So here we go. We've got something that can alter our genome. It's a possibility. And another thing on that, if they're altering the genome, what would be the effects? I told you previously some of the side effects, but...
Well, no. You didn't say what any of the side effects actually were.
Also, we need to know that this is a synthetic piece of DNA or RNA, okay? And if it becomes taken up into the genome of a human, it's synthetic. It's not from nature.
Yes, it's synthetic. It's never been done before, apart from it's been done loads of times, and it just behaves like regular DNA.
And if you look at the Supreme Court justice ruling on synthetic DNA or genes, it can be patented, and patents have owners. So what does that mean for us? What if this gets into our genome?
Well, that's actually a fairly interesting question. in that it's true that a lot of the people who make these, patent these genes can be very litigious about them. People like Monsanto have sued people because Monsanto corn has contaminated somebody else's field, and therefore they are technically growing Monsanto corn without licenses or some shit like that. But, let's just say that you do get this stuff into your genes and it cures you of the coronavirus. Let's just say for sake of argument. This is an interesting legal question. This is an untested legal area.
Does that mean Moderna or the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation or the Department of Defense, all of these people who are involved in the patents, or are they somehow going to own part of our genome?
Yeah, she's just doing the scare story stuff at the moment. So I'm just going to do the devil's advocate on the flip side, which is you cannot do research in a field if you can't intellectually protect your idea at the end. I mean, just as a quick example, imagine someone's created a set of genes that cures all disease in humans, and they have essentially no legal protection. They can never recover the investment that they put in to creating those genes in the first place. It basically means no one can actually make a profit of creating genes that actually do things.
It's a possibility. You need to know that. So that's one part of this delivery system, just one. Now let me go to the next. The next part of the delivery system is a Luciferase enzyme. Okay, they named it, they patented Luciferase. I don't like that name.
Luciferase, a genetic term for a class of oxidative enzymes that produce bioluminescence. They basically glow. That's why they're called luciferases. But for some reason, she's superstitious about the fact that it sounds like Lucifer.
And all of this would be under your skin and you cannot see it. Now, the Luciferase is an idea because they want to make sure that you're vaccinated. They don't trust medical records. They don't trust you saying that you got vaccinated. They want to make sure, and they want to make sure it was successful.
Oh, those evil doctors. They want to make sure that you're actually immune to the coronavirus. How utterly evil.
So when you get the Luciferase enzyme, if you have an iPhone or a special app on the iPhone, you can scan over that area and it will give a digital code, a digital imprint, a digital pattern.
Bullshit. Look, this is from the very next line on the wiki article on luciferases. Luciferases are widely used in biotechnology for microscopy and as reporter genes. Many of the same applications as fluorescent proteins. However, unlike fluorescent proteins, luciferases do not require an external light source, but do require the addition of luciferin, the consumable substrate. So you can't scan for luciferases with an app on a smartphone.
Something that will identify that you were vaccinated. It holds your vaccination record. It also gives you an
No, you're just off in cloud cuckoo land at the moment.
ID, a number, a barcode, a branding, whatever you want to call it, a tattoo. It's all the same thing. You now become like a product.
Yeah, that would be terrifying if everything that you'd come out with wasn't complete and utter bullshit.
So we have that. Now the third thing I mentioned was hydrogel. So hydrogel is actually an invention from DARPA, the Department of Advanced Research Projects Agency. This is kind of a sci-fi kind of a group from the Department of Defense, Pentagon.
No, there is nothing even remarkably sophisticated about hydrogels. They're just swollen polymers, cross-linked polymers that are swollen up with a lot of water.
Hydrogel is actually an invention from DARPA, the Department of Advanced Research Projects Agency.
Yeah, sure it was. That just happened to be first mentioned in the literature in 1894. So come on, tell us more about the Pentagon.
So hydrogel is nanotechnology, microscopic little robots. And these little robots
Yeah, we're into the fractal wrongness. Wrong on every conceivable level. Look, all a hydrogel is a swollen polymer. It's little more than a sponge. To describe this as nanotechnology would mean that you could describe a sponge as nanotechnology, or for that matter, as a bunch of nanorobots.
Actually, I know it sounds crazy. It's still crazy to me, but it's possible, okay? They can disassemble, reassemble, assemble and make different things.
No, 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 no. Hell no, no, no. I refuse, no.
So with this hydrogel, it's really nanotechnology. So that's something...
No, it's not. It's the crap people smear on their faces in moisturizing cream.
Robotic or something that's artificial intelligence. It has the ability to connect with artificial intelligence.
I mean, this is what gets me, this is so stupidly wrong, and yet 250,000 hits and a 95% plus approval rating. So she, with the straight face, described moisturizing cream as a bunch of nanorobots that can be programmed to do all sorts of different things.
So this means that a human can now connect to directly and gather information from our bodies and gather it and connect with your smartphone, with the cloud, with some other smart device. And once this is done, this is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Yeah, I can see it now. Yeah, Dad, I'm getting really bad reception off my moisturizing cream.
Think about that. Think about how immediately that could change our privacy. Immediately it can change our autonomy. Immediately change our freedoms.
Yes, she's paranoid that the face cream is full of nanorobots that are spying on her.
This can gather data like your blood sugar, your oxygen, your blood pressure. Okay, those sound great. But it also can gather many other things. It can gather, they say, your emotions.
No, 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 no!
Or your menstrual cycle, your activity, if you've fallen, your nutrients in your body, if you took medicines.
Oh, God. So let me get this straight. It's now sort of supercomputer nanorobots in the face cream.
And all of this information is going where? That has not been addressed.
Yes, that's because face cream doesn't record your vital signals whilst you're not paying attention, then broadcast them via the internet to some shadowy organization.
Who's protecting this information? What are they using it for? This is really serious stuff, guys. This is all being proposed to being unveiled in the next vaccine, okay? The other thing to know is with this nanotechnology, hydrogel, artificial intelligence, hookup, just like your cell phone, you can send a text message, you can send an email, but also you can receive them back. So that means we could receive information. What information would be coming back into us? Would it affect our mood, our behavior? Would it affect how we think or our memories? I see so many wrong things with this vaccine. And I see that we are not talking about it in the major media.
Yeah, it's getting difficult to parody this. Look, here she is saying one of the most stupid, demonstrably dumb things ever, and then musing like this is some deep pontification about why aren't people discussing this in the mainstream media?
So guys, I wanted to make this video short because I wanted to get the point across. I wanted you to really do your own research.
And this is what I find genuinely terrifying about so many of these videos, is they always end by saying, make sure you do your own research. Yet it's bloody obvious that none of the 300,000 people who watch this actually did their research. Otherwise, they would realize that she is talking complete and utter crap. And then, to really rub salt in the wound, these are the people who have the audacity to call everyone else sheep.
And let me also tell you that there's some major names behind these vaccines. You're always going to see like the Department of Defense from the US government, sometimes DARPA, like I told you. Why is the military involved with our vaccine?
Oh, isn't that sweet? Look, I appreciate your desire that everything has to be the American government is out to get you. And maybe it is, I don't know. But the thing is that this virus doesn't just affect America. It affects the entire world. There are institutes in every country around the world working on a vaccine, and all some sort of shadowy limb of the Department of Defense out to get you for some bizarre reason.
And let's go back to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I want you to look up let's look at the track record. Let's look at what the man stands for.
You mean why is he a billionaire? Well, he made this company called Microsoft that made really shitty software called Windows that became immensely popular. Then they had the cash cow of Microsoft Office. This made Bill Gates incredibly rich to the point where there was no conceivable way he could spend all of his money. And maybe not wanting to be written up in history as a complete jerk who just got exceptionally rich off making bad software, they decided that, whatever, we can't spend the money, so we'll create a foundation that will actually do some good. And one of the things that they went for was vaccines.
His family comes from a family of eugenics. What does eugenics mean? Population control.
We're talking about the same Bill Gates, yeah? The nerd who started Microsoft?
Meaning there's too many people on the planet. That's important to know.
Yeah, sure. It's important to know. And I'm sure it's really important to know that all of those killer nano robots in the Hydrogel, they all run on Microsoft Windows. That's how evil they really are.
He's been on video stating that he thinks with a very good new vaccine, we could get the Earth's population to be decreased by 10 to 15%.
Hang on. So, with a good vaccine that stops people getting sick from viruses, you think that he was recorded saying that this would decrease the world's population? I might need a little bit of context for that one.
Well, who's going to stay and who's going to go?
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's the anti-vaxxers. The anti-vaxxers are the ones who are going to decide who stays and who goes. Because if they insist that, these vaccines, they're all hokum, they'll be the ones who get things like measles in resurgent epidemics, and they'll be the ones who die. So it'll be the anti-vaxxers. They're the ones who decide.
And who is he to decide? He doesn't have a medical background, no epidemiology background, no science background. He's not a doctor, a software tech.
Whereas, of course, you are perfectly qualified to say who stays and goes. After all, you're a doctor and you know about the nanorobots in the Hydrogel.
I'd also like you to realize, I always look at who has a vested interest. What are their motivations? What is his motivation, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain he just wants to shake off his previous reputation as being the guy who got astronomically rich off bad software and really shady business practices.
Well, what's very concerning to me is that DARPA, this military agency...
Oh God, we're back to DARPA again, are we? Yeah, the same DARPA who invented hydrogels, even though hydrogels were first invented over 50 years before DARPA was even founded. And at that, I decided I'd kind of had enough, so I just looked her up, and on Twitter, she's listed as a osteopathic doctor, a bone doctor. You know, that pseudoscientific bone doctor stuff. I blend traditional and holistic medicine for optimal health. I am a child of God and believer in Jesus Christ, and that there are nanorobots spying on you from the face cream. Yeah, that's taking crazy to the next level. Okay, so that's the video for today. Thumbs up would be good if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you don't want to miss out on new videos like this. And as ever, if you really like the work of this channel, you can support it directly through Patreon. And thanks for watching.